The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question to the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is back in session. Today is going to be a relatively short video, so let's not waste any time further and get into it. Now, first of all, we're going to talk about the Dopyla front. Not a lot going on the border with the Dnipropetrovsk region, though we can definitely assume that clashes are continuing in Sergivka and also in Shevchenko too, which is basically the southern flank of Dopyla city, which is right here, that is. And then going to the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk direction, the Russians, via the Group of Forces South, or YUG, have taken control over KUPYANSK. Now, this is based on a report on Telegram by Anatoly Radov, who is a alcoholic that posts reliable maps for the most part, but yeah, so he's reporting the taking of this strategic village here, which puts Ukrainians in these empty fields here in a pocket. And once the Russians are able to clear this pocket, then they're going to advance on the city of Druzhkovka, though I'm certain that they're going to probably focus on taking these villages first, right here, before they enter Druzhkovka. But yeah, there's not a lot of time left for Druzhkovka. I'm expecting the Russians to probably be on the outskirts of the city or suburbs within 1 to 2 months from now. The battle for Druzhkovka is probably going to take, place around that time, late summer to early fall. That's when I'm expecting it to start. I am also expecting the Battle of Ulagzevo Druzhkovka to take place very soon, because once the last pockets of Ukrainian resistance are cleared out within Konstantinovka, then, yeah, Russians will immediately continue advancing further north towards Druzhkovka. And as I said many times before, on Telegram and on here, Ukrainians are going to be forced to withdraw from the pocket southwest of Chasiv Yar. And once that happens, then the high ground will be completely in Russia's favor. So Kramatorsk and Druzhkovka are in big trouble. And speaking of Kramatorsk, Radov has also reported the taking of Tikhonivka, which is also quite close to the city of Kramatorsk. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, ladies and gentlemen, but I think this is the closest that the Russian army has ever been to the city of Kramatorsk in this 4-year conflict. I don't think they've ever been this close, ever, to the city, and I would be surprised if there was another point where, you know, like during the last 4 years or so, 2014 doesn't really count because it was all sporadic and fluid at that time, but during the 2022 war, which is the war that we're seeing right now, I don't think they've ever been this close. So yeah, should be interesting, though. I'm going to give Kramatorsk at least 1 to 2 more months, just like Druzhkovka, before you see fighting like a little closer to its administrative borders. Sloviansk, same. It's going to come down to the defense of Mykolaiivka. Once Mykolaiivka falls, we can definitely say that we have already arrived at the Battle of Sloviansk. But yeah, other than that, though, not a lot of changes in this direction, and the outskirts of Mykolaiivka are still being contested, along with Staru Dubivka. Sorry if I nearly butchered the pronunciation of the village's name. Also, not a lot of changes in Liman, though we can assume that the Russians control most of it, but it could change hands anytime soon because of Ukrainian counteroffensive. Dobry Shovo, or Dobry Shive, a chunk of it went back to Russian control, so now we can definitely say for certain that Russia controls half of it again. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Liman direction. There's also continued clashes in the area north of Liman, but it's not certain on who has the initiative at this time. Now, going to Kupyansk direction, this is the main attraction of today's video. So, breaking news, according to Anatoly Radov, apparently the Russian army via the group of forces west or Zapad, which is considered to be the most polarizing part of the whole army, has not only retaken the initiative, but they have taken the decisive edge over the armed forces of Ukraine in the city of Kupiansk. Not only have they cleared out the city's eastern half, but they have now have taken the complete initiative also in the western part of the city too. And this is the main part. This is where all the commie blocks are, right here, right there, and this is also where the central Rada is. So we can now assume for sure that Kupiansk, for the first time since December 2025, is majority Russian-controlled. And I wouldn't be surprised now if by the end of this month or so, if not sooner, the Russians will take full control of Kupiansk. Like, for the first time since 2022, they will have recaptured it from the armed forces of Ukraine. So yeah, it took a while. The battle should have ended in December, but the Ukrainians just refused to quit. And I guess when the time came for them to do something about Zaporizhia and the Dnipropetrovsk regions, the Ukrainian government just felt that Kupiansk wasn't important enough for them anymore. So they pulled the guys out, and it opened the doors for Zapad Group to start their comeback campaign. And what do you know? Now they're in a much more improved position than they were last year. Because all of what you're seeing on this map right now was not under Russian control. This was mostly under Ukrainian control. Literally, most, if not all, the suburbs and villages on the eastern side of Kupiansk, Oskar River, they're now under Russian control. And it's because of that, I don't really expect Ukrainians to hold on even to western Kupiansk for long because of how so closely intertwined it is with the rest of this. And Kupiansk, Vuzlove is also about to fall too, so that's going to probably be happening this month as well. And the Ukrainians are pretty much on their last leg here. And with the fall of Kupiansk, I'm expecting the Russians to continue pushing further westward. Ironic, because that's literally the name of the group that's in charge of this direction. And go towards other parts of the Kharkiv region. Probably towards the town of Shevchenkove or Shevchenkovo. Right here. There are some commie blocks here, though not a lot, like not as many as there are in Kupiansk. But I'm certain that after Kupiansk falls, they're definitely going to aim for this and try to then collapse the entirety of the armed forces of Ukraine here. Combine that along with the guys also breaking out northwest of Bili Kolodiez. We can assume that it probably won't be too long before the map within Kharkiv region starts to resemble like what we saw in August 2022, a month before that infamous counteroffensive set the Russians back years in Ukraine. Now, moving on from that, so yeah, as I just said a moment or so ago, Russians have broken through in the Kharkiv region, like I reported in my last video, but so far we haven't received any additional updates. None whatsoever. And I also forgot to mention that Petro-Ivanivka has fallen to Russia. That is just south of Novovasilivka. And yeah, again, this is all part of the greater push towards Veliki Burluk. And once Veliki Burluk falls, basically everything here in Kharkiv region will fall to Russia. Like, easily. Without that much of a problem. In Sumy region, not a lot of changes, though what we can assume is that Russia has the strategic initiative in Novosich and Kyanitsia. And then finally, in the Glukov or Khlukiv direction, Russians have advanced a little bit in the fields outside of Ulanove. And there's also reports that they may have taken control over most, if not all, of Bachivisk. But this is unconfirmed yet, so I'm not going to color anything at this time. AMK Mapping has also reported something strange happening going on here. Apparently, the Russians are trying to cross this river here and take control over the village of Herky. But I'm like, I don't know, man. Considering what's on this part of the border, I don't know if it would be wise for the Russians to do that. Just seems silly to me. And also, wouldn't it be more wise to not even use the river, but to just, go around it? Like, instead of, trying to cross the river, you can instead just come from Kursk region and then just enter from Koldolikovo right here. And then you enter Sumy region here in this direction. But crossing the river directly, that would just be stupid, because Ukrainian drones would just be eating you. Like, that would be instant death, suicide. So yeah, there's not really much going on other than basically the continued gas station wars and, of course, the Ukrainian PR victories in the Sea of Azov with multiple Russian tanker ships being blown up or something like that. But otherwise, I don't really think much is really going on to the point where I could assume that something big is going to happen anytime soon. History Legends also made a video in which he thinks that there might be a Ukrainian counteroffensive to retake the Kinburn Spit here, which is technically part of Mykolaiv region, but I honestly doubt that. I don't think the logistics would support the armed forces of Ukraine in this case. And also, he thinks also for some reason that Ukrainians might retake Energodar, and that's pretty fucking stupid. The only realistic possibility, I think, that could happen is that they might just reset the clock back in Stepnogorsk direction. They essentially retake KUPYANSK and Plavny, thus basically everything here just falls back to Ukraine, and basically the map here starts to resemble like what it was for the last few years before 2025 when Russians broke out of this direction. But I honestly don't know if that's going to really matter in the long run, because if the Ukrainians lose the city of Orekhov, and they honestly could still lose it because of Vostok's recent advances in the Zaporizhzhia region, then what was the point then of this counteroffensive by the Ukrainians here? It's almost as if Russia is using this area as bait for them. Not just to grind some more meat, but also to prevent them from overly defending the Orekhov direction. So it seems to me the Ukrainians have sacrificed Kharkiv and Sumy regions, and even parts of Donetsk region too, basically central Donbas, in favor of trying to retake parts of the Zaporizhzhia and Dnipropetrovsk regions. They even are retrying to take some parts of Donetsk region that they lost in last year's summer offensive. That's not really, in the long term, a lot of strategic success here. If anything, it just gives the Russians what they want, a free kill zone, and also they can give up this land without really fucking themselves in the ass, because when compared to the rest of Ukraine, it's really not that important, unless, of course, they want to enter Dnipropetrovsk region. But again, as I said in multiple videos, what's the point if the Russians, via Group Center, are just going to enter Dnipropetrovsk region from Pokrovsk, aka Krasnoyarsk? And once Dobropila falls, then the Dnipropetrovsk region is essentially a sitting duck from the eastern direction and not the southern direction anymore. So Ukrainians don't really have a lot of options left on how to stop the Russian advances. Because if they were to stop Russians in Zaporizhzhia and Dnipropetrovsk, they're just then going to advance in Sumy and Kharkiv regions. And if they were to stop them in Sumy and Kharkiv regions, they're just going to advance again in Zaporizhzhia and Dnipropetrovsk regions. And of course, they keep losing in Donetsk too. There's also the big question of Chernigov region, but I honestly doubt anything's going to happen here anytime soon. I mean, just look at all these forests. It's a nightmare. I don't think they're going to do anything here. So yeah. So that's going to do it for today's short video, everybody. I hoped you found it informative. Like the video, comment below if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys in the next 3 days or so from now. So take good care of yourselves, and bye-bye.